All right, guys, you're up.
All right, great, thank you. We are back in open session, and at this point, item 4 on our agenda, we have communications, recognitions, and information. The correspondence log has been updated. Take a look at that. It has all correspondence received to date through the 1920 school year. Board calendar, we're going to talk about graduation here in a minute. MSBA Summit. Anybody have an update? John, did you have an update on that?
I don't. I believe Christine, are you participating? Is that the one you're participating in?
Next Friday, is it?
The 19th.
I thought it was Christine, Keita, and Alex.
Oh, everybody. Sorry about that.
And then Christine was going to be the delegate.
That's true.
Okay, perfect. You also have in your packet a first read of several Board of Education policies. I won't go through them right now. You'll get to look at them a few more times. If you have questions, please feel free to reach out to Keita or Joe or me, as we are the members of the policy subcommittee. Chartwells, is Nancy here?
Nancy's here.
Hi, Nance. Hi. Wait, I gotta get my video on. Okay, hi.
Hi.
Hey.
Hello.
So Chartwell's donated a $1,000 scholarship to the students graduating this year, and we had 2 recipients, each a $500 to Cameron Yancey and Marion Clemens. So congratulations to those 2.
Outstanding. Thank you so much.
Huge thank you to Chartwells, and picked 2 great candidates there. Neat young men. Yeah. We appreciate your support in so many ways, and Chartwell's support, thinking about you guys.
Absolutely.
With everything going on.
Thanks.
Yeah.
You must be extremely popular. You could just get to show up and give people money. Everyone loves you. No, seriously. Thanks, Nancy. We appreciate it.
Thanks for Nancy.
And I know that those kiddos will too.
Yes.
So.
And thanks for your continued support of the food service program as well, continuing to serve our kids and families in a big way, and with the new fresh produce that is being given out to families, I think that's huge. So
yes, they are very excited.
good. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Have a good night.
Dr. Simpson, do you have a report for us on COVID-19?
Yeah, once again, I'll kind of kick it off, give my colleagues an opportunity to jump in regarding everything that's happening with our response. We kind of continue to operate in this world of unknown, that just information seeking, and information is coming in at quite a rapid pace. And as we approach the 2021 school year, we're trying to develop a number of different schooling models that will work for different scenarios. As it relates to the current status of the virus within our community and region, as well as different scenarios as it relates to how families choose to respond. And this is kind of no different than school districts around the region. We're all working on these different particular approaches. One approach would have the children in school. I won't say, I don't think school will ever be the same, but back in all the kids in session. One certainly would be the kids outside of the school, and then one that we're dedicating a lot of time to, and I'll let Chris speak a little bit more to it, is a hybrid model where the kids are in session and physically with us some of the time, and then not within our gen ed setting other parts of the time. I have kind of been doing my work with that, because one of the things that we need to do a better job of is when kids are not physically with us, how do we keep them connected? How do we keep them engaged? And we saw, I think we did a decent job with that. I think Chris and her team and the others at the building level did a great job of engaging kids overall, but we still saw kids that were not engaged. And it's really it's a challenge to do that when you're behind a screen you're on a screen like this and you're not seeing them every day. So our priority is to have the kids in front of us as much as we can. One of the things I think I hit on last time is that connecting with local churches, because if we're going to do something hybrid, for example, kids being with us for half a day, out of support for their education, their overall well-being, and out of respect for what varying levels of support they're able to have at home based on resources, based on parents working, we want to provide another setting for them to continue their education if it can't be continued in their home environment. And one of the things I've been doing is working with churches to try and see if they have space and would be willing to host us, our staff and our kids, and was on a Zoom call last week, and all the churches are very enthusiastic about wanting to do their part to help us. And they also said, don't just think of us for the space, think of us for other resources such as PPEs, anything that we can do. We have people that want to demonstrate care for our kids and our families. So tell us how we can help. And so that was really encouraging. And now they have their own things that they have to consider too, because most of them are not having services right now. Most of them are not hosting Sunday schools. And so they want to support us, but they too have to think of how does that look in their particular setting. So we've done a lot of thinking and starting to do some planning with how that might look. I continue to meet with regionally with superintendents on the matter. Some of the topics that have been discussed recently include just helping, making sure that the adults and kids who come into our buildings are safe to do so, and what processes do we put in place. Currently, just as we saw last year, no one's going to tell us more than likely that we have to close or we have to do something, but they're going to give us guidelines. And so then it becomes our discretion what we do. So we're trying to learn with one another as we learn more about the virus, as we learn more about what others are doing. Trying to learn from organizations like hospitals that have been open all along. How are they keeping their people safe? What are they doing? Transportation was a hot topic this past week. It's a really big worry for people, I'm sure, all around the country, as we in Webster don't have a number of children who ride the bus, but we do have a good share, but not in comparison to some other districts. We spoke to two national organizations, bus companies, presented to us, and then we discussed the matter. One of the people said that, gave an example of a 66 passenger bus, which is standard for their national company, to actually do social distancing on their bus. They could only transport 9 to 10 kids. They didn't factor in possibly siblings riding with one another. That was just spacing out groups. He said that doesn't also take into account people's worry, which I do have, for our children and adults being in a closed, contained environment for large portions of time. This is something I'll be speaking about and discussing with our VIC board this coming Thursday for children that can be on the bus for over an hour every single day. One of the ideas that had been discussed by some was putting some type of barrier such as plexiglass, creating some level of separation, and the company kind of laughed that off, saying that, just imagine these buses are designed for safety. Can you imagine plexiglass shattering on a school bus, and what that could do to people on the bus? So there's not a really great way to create a physical barrier on the bus for the children. So the dilemma is, no one's going to tell us that the children can't ride the bus. It's going to be up to us to determine, do we say no to transportation because we don't feel it's safe, or do we create the opportunity and give parents the opportunity, knowing the potential risk of transporting students, and doing everything we can to keep it as safe as possible? So again, that's one of many topics that we're working on and discussing as a region, as well as within our own school district. Again, like I shared before, most school districts are going to share what their decision is. Their tentative decision mid-July, and it looks like possibly July 20th might be a date for us to do so. With that, I will turn it over to my peers to share any things that they're talking about in terms of staff returning or other curricular programming or funding or anything like that. So just jump on in.
I'll go. Good evening, everyone. A couple of updates. So at last board meeting, you approved the contract for us to move to use the Canvas learning management platform. And since then, Dr. Adams and Tim Brown and I have met both with the company several times each week, and then with each other as well to develop the process to roll that out to our administrators and our staff. We have a plan in place for the professional development that will need to occur around that. The information in professional development was pushed out to our coordinators and our administrative staff today. We're looking to push out to our teachers next week, and they will be provided support and as well as compensation for their time to do this work over the course of the summer. In addition, we'll be providing ongoing question and answer sessions and support from the technical end for any work that they're doing throughout the summer. What Jason and Tim and I are attempting to do is provide as much, get as much done kind of on the back end for our teachers, so that there's less for them to do as they're learning how to upload lessons, upload videos to benefit the kids. All of us truly believe that this learning management system is better than what we were currently using as when it comes to online learning. So we do think that instructionally, it is a much more sound tool for our students and our staff to use. From a curricular standpoint, Jason and I have also met with all of our coordinators, and we've highlighted the skills and the goals that we need to reinforce that might have not been mastered towards the end of the year. The coordinators have done a spectacular job looking at those goals and have already created systems where that information is embedded into next year's curriculum and goals for the teachers to use. They're also looking at ways to take traditionally face-to-face learning and move that online. We met this afternoon to look at how could this look, what content areas would best be face-to-face versus online, more emphasis being given face-to-face versus online. So the entire coordinating team, along with Dr. Adams, we're all working through that process so that there's a consistent plan for all of our teachers and for all of our students, so that they know what the expectations are when we finally decide what the hybrid model will look like, and also to ensure that we have a consistent, rigorous instructional approach for all of our students that is also aligned with those students who might choose to do all of their instruction in an online platform because the families are not comfortable with sending them back to school face-to-face. So those are some of the things that we're working on right now.
Chris, just I have what's going to be a slightly odd question. It just occurred to me. If we're not able to go back to school for a portion of the next school year, so if we start thinking in terms of children will then potentially have been out for a whole year between the two, not in school in person. If parents feel that their children really have been at a disadvantage, is there any facility for parents to sort of petition to have them repeat a year? I'm guessing it's not something that's going to be terribly popular, but just what are the rules that surround something like that? Really, I mean, just to make sure that our children are actually receiving the education that they need.
Mhm. So from historically, retention is on an individualized basis, and the very, very few students who are retained within Webster Groves tend to be younger, kindergarten, first grade. And so that process typically involves many discussions, meetings with the parents, with the teachers. There's also what's called a Lights retention scale to determine whether or not a student is a good candidate to retain, because it's sometimes, depending on the family dynamics, the age of the student, there's many things that we take into consideration to determine whether or not it would be good from the standpoint of social and emotional development of a child, and academic development. So I would not say that that's would be our first priority, and that would really be a situation where we would look at it on an individualized basis based on the needs of the child. But it has occurred in the past.
And I'm specifically thinking in terms of something that, as I say, it would be something that I'd expect to be initiated by the parents. I suppose, yes, it could be initiated by the school if you felt that that was something that would provide them with the best benefits. Okay, thank you very much.
That's a good question, David. It has to be, it's something where a parent can't just choose to have that happen, but if the process and the school administration feels that it's best for the education of that child, then it can happen.
Yeah, I mean, that's why I'm saying I'm sort of suggesting it might be initiated by the parent. I'm not suggesting that,
Yeah.
I didn't even know what the rules were, and it just sort of occurred to me as you'd made your comments, then as Dr. Denbo had made hers. I mean, this perhaps is the biggest thing that concerns me with all of this, is just I'm hearing all kinds of different stories from different parents in terms of how well this is working, and I think we're all seeing different things. We've some learners for whom this is actually working, potentially better, but there are certainly a number also who are at risk, and I mean, it's just so important. All right, okay, thanks very much.
Thank you.
Joe, did you have something?
I just had a question. Do you feel like the districts are going to do the similar things, surrounding districts, or do you feel like it's kind of everyone's going to do their own thing?
I think people are going to try to be as consistent as they possibly can, but based on some of the resources and also what I'm hearing, just the geography of the school district, some things might be a little bit more difficult to be consistent on. I think for a lot of reasons, consistency helps us. It's supportive if we're all on the same page with things. There are different districts right now who are leaning more towards, who are not considering a hybrid approach. It's either we're in or we're out. And others are kind of working on that hybrid. We're kind of working on a hybrid, but want to be flexible enough to go either way. It'll be easier to go all in, or not easy, but to shift those other directions. It's interesting in Webster because we've talked about as groups listening to people like in I'll say a Parkway school district, because I have a lot of more familiarity with that. If there's a child that develops or gives positive diagnosis in the north area, you may only have to close a certain number of schools for a certain period of time. Where in Webster, where you've got all the children kind of connected in all these different schools, there's a possibility you could have to close the district. So we're trying to how do you, what's the safest way to do it, and kind of studying contact tracing. Local superintendent Art McCoy and Jennings took a class through Johns Hopkins that anybody could take. I got in while it was still free, just to try and learn more about what we can do about contact tracing in our environment. That's going to be huge.
And do the parochial or private schools participate in those conversations at all?
They are not participating in the conversations at this point. They've been good partners all the way through the closure.
Right.
We have seen a number. I have personally, as well as professionally, been reached out to by people saying I love my private school, but if we're going to be online. I'm going to come to Webster while it's free. I'm going to go back as soon as we're back in school.
Right.
And I've seen some that are coming regardless, but I think whether that's COVID, economic or what, I don't know. But
Interesting.
yeah,
I can add from a curricular standpoint, most every one of the coordinators is very tied into their regional colleagues within their content areas, and they're working together very closely. And so many districts are moving to Canvas, so we've got that level of support that we're all going through this together, migrating to that learning management platform. And then in addition, the ongoing conversations around the different content areas and how the districts are approaching that. And there really is a wonderful level of collegiality and support regionally among our districts.
That's really good to hear.
we've talked to, I just want to add this real quick, is that we've talked about, say we did a hybrid model and, for the second half of the day, if that were the model that we choose, the children would be either go home or go to another setting with our staff where they engage in their learning the rest of the time, is that we have to look at from, are there kids based on for a lot of reasons that we need to ensure are in our care the whole day, for whether it's for certain educational needs, whether it's certain social emotional needs, whether it's, they're at home and they're not accessing their learning while they're at home, but to be either to start with that opportunity, but then also be able to flexibly move kids safely into that if their needs aren't being met outside the school, and we're able to do that inside the school. So that's an important piece of what we plan.
And is there like a date it's set that there's going to be a decision by? I know people are wondering if there's.
Yeah, there hasn't been anything for sure, but everyone has said mid-July, and a couple people had just thrown out there that they had already marked July 20th.
Okay.
And it, like everything else with related to this, it's just such a moving target. Superintendents very honestly, as I have done, and said, well, last week I was thinking we were heading this direction, but this week, well, I'll report where we are next week. It's just it's a hitter, it's a moving target.
Absolutely.
John, are there any kind of is there any kind of accounting for the possibility of an increase in free and reduced lunch with some of the COVID job loss and furloughs and any of those, like accounting for the possibility of more need for some of our children?
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I think there will be some more need, and we'll have to respond to what that means. Have to be listening to people and what do they need from a resource standpoint, from a support with utility standpoint. There has been, we've advertised a lot of different ways that folks could be supported in that, but we'll have to make sure that we're really in tune with that moving in to the school year and beyond. Yeah.
John, am I remembering correctly that you led a bandwidth initiative or did something with Wi-Fi for Webster students?
Yeah, we did that through the Equity and Ed Committee a number of years ago, where that was something that having Wi-Fi hotspots that could be accessed by families who had a need, and or so either identified through social workers and counseling support or available in the libraries for people to check out. We currently have more Wi-Fis. We have about 40 to 50, Chris.
Yeah, we did another account. That was 2 years ago. And once this all started, we did another accounting and actually purchased additional, they're called Khajiits. So we have quite a few on hand that actually we didn't use as many as we thought on our initial counts, because I think people signed up as the pandemic continued. And so I feel very comfortable that we'll have plenty of access points for students next year.
I'm going to be on a conference call tomorrow with Charter. Charter Spectrum was a group that got a lot of people looking at them, because when it first was released, they said that they would provide free Wi-Fi support in families if you didn't have a past due balance for 2 months. It's my understanding now that they're looking to go through partner with school districts to provide some level of Wi-Fi access. I don't know exactly what that looks like, but there's going to be a lot of us that are on a call with them tomorrow to learn more about that. Okay. Somebody else want to jump in? Sandy or Pam, do you want to share?
Hi, sure. Yes. So it's been very busy in human resources. We have still been working each day to support and inform our staff members of their rights as well as benefits, depending upon their individual circumstance and situations. So we have done had a lot of conversations via phone or texting if certain situations occur. We have also been surveying other HR departments to determine their reentry process. So we are trying to work as an HR group to try to have some consistent practices as we are inviting staff back potentially to come to work. We have worked to develop a reentry plan that just kind of talks through how we're going to function whenever we do come back into the space, how many people should be allowed, in addition to ordering enough supplies, face coverings, hand sanitizer. As we all know, those things are hot commodities in today's time, but we are grateful for Holly and for Holly Henderson, who's John M's assistant, as well as Nicole over Lee, which is Matt Palmer's assistant, in doing some research and getting us some supplies. So as a staff and 12-month employees, we're going to kind of triage our approach or tier it so that we are still allowing some staff to work from home if your work permits. But those staff who can work, we've developed a schedule for those staff members to begin to come into work and for us to see how that goes. Our goal is to start that around June 15th, so next week. Then we will start that. The office will still, central office in all buildings, will still be closed to the public as we kind of get it all figured out. But we're going to try, we have a schedule for people, there not to be as many people on the floor, processes for no longer using like coffee machines, the ice machine, all of those things are commonly used things that require multiple hands and personal touch. We are kind of eliminating those processes. We're still also analyzing staff needs. Right now, we do have some staff members that, due to their family member or husband or wife being laid off, are now potentially having to transition out of St. Louis in order to capture employment. So we have had a recent resignation related to that. And so we are still analyzing our staffing as it comes in. Some positions we're kind of holding on, some positions we're moving forward. So we're just kind of seeing where we are with regard to that. Again, not sure what school looks like. And we all know that staffing is based on kids, right? So depending upon where our kids are and what their needs are will determine all of those components. So we, again, plan to start coming back into the office. We will go through a process of checking temperatures, asking staff to disclose on a daily basis via a self-screen if they're exhibiting any symptoms, and we put some processes in place with regard to that. So the hope is that, hopefully that goes well, and we'll, have a process designed so that we can at some point reopen the district back to visitors and have a clear process for that. We are also working on a couple of other things, but primarily that's our work right now with regard to COVID, is how are we going to kind of get back to business in an office space, right? With regard to that. And people, of course, it's the summer, people are trying to take some time off now. So we're definitely wanting to honor that as people are trying to, find a sense of normalcy somehow, take a road trip or whatever, for us to come back and be active in July. So.
Sandy, I have a question about that last piece that you talked about. Who will be overseeing that contact tracing, the temperature and the surveying? Is it you? Is it a nurse?
Yeah, so right now in the summer, we don't have nurses on staff. So the Human Resources Department will be responsible for that at central office. And so we've set up schedules or starting times for people to come to work. They recommended that those things take place outside. So we are trying to establish a quick process, right? So that people are not standing outside waiting on it, right? So we've set up some schedules and we'll see how that goes for people for their entry. And if a person has a temperature, we've established or created a brochure to provide to them with some recommendations, things to follow, and some suggestions for them to do. So yeah, that's a central office. At Service Center, we are training additional employees to do this process as well, so that at our different locations, we'll have trained people to do it until we have nursing staff back in the place, and potentially we will be supporting in lieu of doing the work. But at this point, it's all hands on deck from the human resources definitively, and then some other staff who will be training. Thank you, guys.
So you probably saw in the check register, there were a lot of reimbursements to parents this time. There were Cardinal tickets we had to refund, field trips that didn't happen, bus fees that needed to be refunded. We've talked before about the CARES Act funding. DESE has just changed that allocation. They increased it a little bit for us. They've got us now, our allocation is at $264,000. But we are required to offer $69,000 of that to the non-public schools in our district. So we do have someone, Holly is working with them to figure out what their needs are. I was able to submit finally that FEMA grant. There was a lot of information required on that, but we got that submitted. So I'm anxiously awaiting to see what will be approved for on that. I'm hoping for sure we get some of the PPE that we've been purchasing reimbursed. It's a 75% reimbursement. So keeping my fingers crossed on that, and that hopefully maybe they'll also reimburse us for some of our technology needs that we had. Then we're also working on some cleaning protocols for the fall. So we have that following the CDC guidelines. So we make sure that we're cleaning our buildings, not only at night, but during the day, wiping down those high touch and things like that.
All right, thank you. Anybody else have anything to share or additional questions?
You know, I guess I'll just say, so I've been, one of the things is just realizing that it's really easy probably just to say we're all in or we're not. So I just want to kind of I guess, thank you for doing the tough job of trying to figure out what that hybrid approach will be, because I know that's extremely difficult. That's the hard approach. And I'm also pleased to hear that you are acknowledging, you know, the struggle of half days and how we can do that equitably from the different families that have varying circumstances and children really that have varying circumstances. So how can we, you know, best support them? And then even, you know, really everything from transportation all the way to the end of the day, you know, or lack thereof transportation. Like, how are we going to ensure that if we don't feel like buses are safe, how are we going to ensure that everyone gets to where they need to be? And so I do not envy, you know, you having to come up with this solution, but I am confident that you are going to come to a plan, whether it's a plan that, you know, we may have to adjust along the way. I think the thing that's hopefully going to happen, I'm hopeful of happening, is that we unlock some capabilities we didn't really know that we had. And so, you know, when we come out on the other side of this, we're better for it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Alex. Well said. All right, John, do you have an update for us on graduation?
Nothing real big, but I shared with you last week just regarding with graduation. We made the decision to bypass Chaffetz. We had a date in June and a date in July, and didn't feel like we had the ability to, within that space, well, we wouldn't have a lot of control in the Chaffetz, but that in terms of adequately spacing people and doing that was just out of our hands. And so what the decision was made to settle on a date. I had spoken with a few people. Matt's been touching base with kids all the way throughout. And so we did settle on that June 26th and 27th as dates that we targeted for graduation. I will say that 26th for sure is the time that they want to pass out the diplomas to kids. And they're trying to do whatever is possible to make that day as special as possible, knowing the limitations that exist. I will say that the longer we've waited to make the decision, you keep getting presented with new ideas of how to do it possibly even better. So we're not settling necessarily on what is best, but we know that 26th and that 27th are our target dates. So, which I know, and I reached out to both Joe and Christine as people who are obviously very vested in the decision and everything, with seniors who have lived through this whole experience, to get their take on it too. And I know one of the things that each echoed, as did some others, is that the likelihood of us being in a spot where we could have a quote unquote normal graduation is unlikely. And with the schedules of families, including graduates, that it would be best to know and be able to plan around a set of dates and just let's do the best that we can for the kids. And then look for an opportunity in the not too distant future to gather them all for a celebration as alumni and make that a really special event. So that's all I really have at this point.
Thank you. Comments or questions?
I have a question. It's coming from the class of 2020 parent page. Do you know anything about the venue, or, should we be limiting attendance? Should we be telling grandparents? Do we know any of this yet?
I hope to be able to say something soon. I will say it all depends on what we do. I think that regardless, attendance will have to be limited somehow. Things that we have considered for one is a kind of a drive-up graduation where graduates are essentially driving up, walking across the stage, and that would be limited to, likely folks who are in a car. I don't know if even 2 cars would be a consideration, so that would be something. An idea that also came through recently, and that's kind of with that Friday event, the handing the diploma, that would be a limitation. Another thing that's come up recently, some school districts have done, is that they have imagine at Moss Field, if you were able to appropriately space and distance graduates in the grandstands, which is a pretty big grandstand, you could do that. And then you spaced all the participants out in the field and across the whole stadium. Some people have done that, and it's been pretty well received in some places. Again, I don't know if all of 16 family members would be able to attend that, or we'd have to limit that and stream the rest. But again, the longer it's finalized, the more ideas we have. But there's got to be that trigger pull, and then a lot of thinking and prayer for good weather with whatever we decide, because we don't see it being indoors. So hopefully soon, Christine. I know that's a big thing, and I know people coming in from out of town.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I don't remember, Joe, if you've seen any other questions that are out there.
I don't think so. I think that's the big one. Just what it's going to look like and who can be included.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Again, that was one of the reasons why we were moving to Chaffetz, because it would be inclusive for everybody and we could have as many people and not be like last year where people, you know, couldn't see the stage and people are standing. And so soon. I know it's soon and it's 2.5 weeks away. It's not soon enough. So I do say that knowing that. And so it's an interesting time. Anything else?
Thank you.
Yes.
Next up, we have Ms. Frazier, medical insurance, followed by budget adjustment and fiscal year budget. Oh my.
Okay, so as you know, the district has an insurance committee that every year they review medical and dental insurance, the plans and the premium increases. They have done that again this year. I think you also know that the district is part of the CSD Insurance Trust Pool, been a member for several years. And that trust is a self-funded trust. So basically how that works is as claims increase, the premiums increase to cover those costs. Historically, Webster has seen a pretty high loss ratio, which is comparing the cost of the claims to the premium. I think the district had a 9% increase in insurance last year. This year, we're very fortunate to see that the loss ratio actually went down. We were thinking a few months ago we'd have a 4.5% increase in our insurance, our medical insurance premiums, but we were very fortunate that the claims went down, dropped us into a different tier. The trust has 5 different tiers that they use when they price the premiums for the following year. We were in the 4th tier. This dropped us down to the 3rd tier for only a 1.6% increase in our premiums. After talking to the committee about that, the committee's recommendation with the support of the administration is that the district would pick up that entire 1.6%. Our split right now, for the year that we're in right now, the district pays 91.79% of the premium and the employees pay 8.21%. So by the district picking up that 1.6, the district actually would be picking up, have a 1.8% increase. That would be $1 more per month than what the district would have been paying anyway. $1 per month per employee. Then good news on the dental side, dental premiums are going down 5.5%, which comes to $2.02 per employee per month. So as I mentioned, the insurance committee's recommendation is for the district to pick up that entire premium cost. And I just also want to point out, if an employee decides to buy up to the more expensive plan, they will have a little bit higher of an increase. It's $1 more, or if they have family coverage, obviously that's going to be more. We also have a kids plan that is, as it says, a kids plan. Plan has been running high for several years where its claims are exceeding the premiums. And the trust actually needed about a 20% increase, but when the trust examined that, they didn't want to increase those premiums by 20%. So the trust voted for that plan to have a 10% increase. These costs are in the budget already that I'm going to present in a little while to you. So unless the board objects, we will move forward with the district this increase. But I also wanted to point out that we do plan on next year, the committee will take another look at that split to decide if we want to stay at that rate we have right now, how much the district pays and how much the employees contribute. We'll gather information from other St. Louis County districts and then make a recommendation to the board if we think that needs to be changed. So any questions?
So,
Yeah.
Alex, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm just curious, more so just about process. So typically, when for the insurance committee, for these types of increases or anything like that would affect the budget, does this then get brought by the chair, I guess, or yourself of the insurance committee to the finance committee as well?
Yeah, in this case, We've talked to the finance committee about the increase, but I don't think we talked about this particular aspect of picking up the entire thing just because of the timing of the meetings and the information.
So, yeah. Just curious.
Good question.
And Pam, I just wanted to make sure. So what we're talking about here again is that the district is picking up the increase for employees only, and then if employees choose to go and bring in children or anything else, then all of that is passed on to them. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. I just think as people hear this, I think it's important to understand quite how much we're asking our employees to pay if they're utilizing the insurance for people other than themselves. That's all. Okay, thank you.
No other questions? Do you want to move on to the budget adjustments?
Yeah, let me share my screen. Oops. Okay, can you see this PowerPoint?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so a couple things about fiscal year 2020 and how we've ended. Our ADA, our average daily attendance has remained very similar to the previous year, so there's no changes there. We do have some reductions that I'll talk about on the next slide to revenue due to the downturn in the economy due to COVID-19. But on a positive note, our current and delinquent tax revenue is coming in right now about $1 million over budget, our year-to-date numbers. So that's good news. So that's going to help us cover some of the reduced revenue in other areas, such as the state formula, Prop C, and then lunch receipt didn't receive since we were not. Actual receipt expenditures are trending really close to a balanced budget. We do still have a lot of bills that need to be paid, so we'll watch those as we go through June. But it looks like we're really close to having a balanced budget, even though we have all these changes on the revenue side. So the changes that we're asking the board to approve in this budget adjustment, an increase in the revenue by $9,865,068. The majority of that is the Prop E bond proceeds that we received back in, I think it was November, a little over 10 million. Then Prop C sales tax, we need to decrease, as I mentioned, because of COVID-19 and the economy decline. That's about $105,000 that we need to decrease that by. The state funding formula has two different components in it, but overall it needs to be reduced by $203,000, and that is due to the governor's announcement just a week ago, last Monday afternoon, that he would be withholding funds from school districts. The way that's broken down, the majority of the reduction is coming from the classroom trust part of the funding formula. And if you recall, that is gaming revenues, and with the casinos being closed, obviously there's not as much revenue coming in. The formula itself, they had money to increase that a little bit, but as I mentioned, overall it's a $200,000 decrease. It looks like our budgeted fund balance is going to be about 48.10%. It is expected to be a little bit higher because we're not expending all of our expenditures. So hopefully that'll end up being a little bit higher than that. So any questions? So I just need a motion to approve that.
So I'll make a motion. Oh, let me turn on the motion. Okay. I'm in the dark. I'll make a motion to approve the final budget adjustment for the 2019-20 fiscal year as presented, with revenue totaling $80,228,662 and expenditures totaling $93,492,923.
Second.
All right, moved and seconded. not necessarily discussion, but I just want to make a quick comment that we appreciate you bringing us these updates periodically throughout the year. So this isn't a big surprise to anyone. We've done a great job of keeping us informed, and thank you for your hard work. So all those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Any abstentions? All right, thank you.
Okay, so fiscal year 21 budget. I have to say, this is the 17th year I've been a part of developing a budget for a school district, and has been the most challenging. After 2008 and the recession, there were some hiccups along the way and some concerns, but this year, partly is timing. It's happened so late when districts are trying to prepare their next year, and we don't know what's going to happen. We don't know, we just found out last week about more withholdings. So definitely been a challenging process. But I thought I'd start by going over again our budget goals. We want to provide the resources to promote a learning environment that's challenging and supportive of all students. We want to ensure we have strong fiscal and operational management. We want to maintain our class sizes. We've incorporated the salaries that are at the district goal of being 3 to 5% over the St. Louis County median. And we want to maintain a competitive employee benefit package, which we just talked about. So let's talk about some of the planning and the revenue assumptions that were made in the budget. So there is an approximate 1% increase in current and delinquent tax revenue. I've estimated the assessed at being $955 million, a little bit more than that, based on, now my internet says it's unstable, so please let me know if you're not hearing me. So I've used this based on the prior 3 years changed in assessed valuation during non-reassessment years. And by doing that, then putting that into the tax rate calculation, the residential rate right now that's being used is $4.10.12 compared to $4.11 last year. That's because that assessed valuation went up, causing the rate down. The tax rate on commercial is $4.09.54 used in the budget compared to $4.57 last year. And that's because that commercial assessed valuation actually went down when I looked at the average of the prior 3 years, and personal property remaining the same at $5.90. So the current and delinquent tax budget is less than what we've received so far year to date in 1920 by about $600,000. That is high. It seems, I'm not quite sure what's going on. I was talking to someone at another school district too, and they said their collection rate is really high this year. And we still have June receipts. Usually we receive about $300,000 in June. If we get that again, we're going to be $900,000 more than what is actually even budgeted for next year. So we'll keep an eye on that to try to figure out exactly what's causing that. Average daily attendance in the formula, that's expected to remain pretty stable to what it is this year. The change is the state adequacy target, this SAT. Originally, it was allocated from the legislature that it was going to be 6,375, the same as this year. But when the governor announced his withholdings last week, he told us that probably this would happen again in July. But the difference is in June, the withholdings that were done, the governor had declared a state of emergency. What that state of emergency gave him the authority to actually just say, I'm taking state funding formula money away from every district in the state, and he reduced it by 3.5%. So even the districts that are considered hold harmless on the formula, and usually they're not affected, they were affected with that June withholding that's going to happen. So the state of emergency is scheduled to end in June. So we don't know that the governor is going to have that authority to do that same thing so that all districts see the withholding. If that doesn't happen, then districts like us that are on the formula are going to see more of a withholding. So that's where I came up with a 6,276 to cover more than the 3.5% that we had withheld or will have withheld in June. That's about $450,000 less than what we expected just a couple of weeks ago. So Prop C sales tax, that funding level is at 985. That's the same amount I shared with you at the April meeting. That sales tax, the Prop C sales tax, has been relatively stable the last few months. And in Prop C, when they calculate that, part of the reason why is because grocery sales tax is included in that. And as you know, a lot of us are spending a lot more on groceries right now than we are on other things. But that is still $200,000 less than what was expected before COVID-19. M&M tax, this tax, I increased that based off of the last 4 years' receipt. And we've placed all of those funds in the general fund. As we mentioned at the last when we talked in April, this is a fund or a revenue source that we can place in any fund. And since we need it now more in operating than in debt service and capital projects, it's all placed in the general fund. I've also had to lower interest since our April meeting. The interest rates we are receiving have dropped quite a bit in the last 4 to 6 weeks. So that amount of revenue has also been decreased. Then on the expenditure side, we have those salary increases that end up being either 3% or 5% over the county median. Our teachers are 5% over the county median, and all the other groups are 3% over the median. We had a decrease in FTE of 3.5, mainly due to some class size aides that were not needed for next year. But we also had to add 30 minutes to the day. The length, you remember, the length of our school day is going to increase next year. So we had to have minutes for our aides in their day. But I also wanted to mention that we have a few vacant positions that are budgeted, but they're not currently being filled at this time because of our funding uncertainty. So we will see a little bit of a savings there. So we'll watch what's going to happen with funding over the next couple of months and decide what we're going to do with those positions. The medical premiums, as we just mentioned, are increased by 1.8%, and vision premiums decreased by 5.5%. Supply accounts have been decreased. That's mainly due to removing the carryover. As you know, we allow our principals to carry over funds from 1 year to the next. We added carryover amounts in the 1920 budget, and now we took them out. We'll wait and see how this year ends, see what carryovers we have, and we'll be back to the board with a budget adjustment somewhere in the fall, early winter, to make any adjustments if we need to do carryovers from this year into next year. After reanalyzing our utility accounts, Joanne and I took a look at them. We originally thought we were going to have to increase them, but we think we are good for next year. So there's no change in utility accounts for next year. And then our capital outlay accounts have been reduced. The biggest reduction there was the $500,000 that was put in there for our Prop B projects in case it was needed. We'll spend that this year, so we don't need to budget that for next year. And then there are just some other adjustments that we've made to align the budget to our expected spending needs. So now we'll take a look at the budget. If we look at all funds, revenues at $69,287,000, where expenditures are at $87,290,000. So we have an $18 million deficit, but the majority of that is for the Prop E projects. This year, we're estimating we're going to spend $18 million on those projects. So if we remove the Prop E revenue, expecting about $130,000 in interest, and then the $18 million in expenditures, our budget has a deficit of $136,000. Moving on, if we break that down just to look at our operating funds, the general fund, the teachers fund, and the capital projects fund without the bond proceeds or the bond funds in there, we have revenue at $63,293,000 and expenditures at about 64.1, and giving us a deficit of just under $800,000. And then just to look at the general and teachers fund, because that's how our operating fund balance is actually calculated by DESI. So if you look at those funds, we're at 62.6 million in revenue, expenditures 62.47, which gives us a budget surplus of almost $156,000. So as this year moves on, we're really going to be watching our capital expenditures, because in most years, the district has to transfer funds from the general fund to the capital projects fund to cover those expenditures. So this year, we're really going to be watching them to make sure we really need to make those expenditures to help us get closer to a balanced budget by the end of the year. In debt service, the debt service will have revenue of 5.8, almost 5.9 million. Expenditures of 5.2, so a budget surplus of $663,000. In your packet too, in that budget document, there is the bond amortization schedule, so you can see what those payments are expected to be over the next several years. And Prop E, as I mentioned, if you just look at that fund, we put that in Fund 5 in the district. Shows hopefully interest we'll receive on the projects is $132,750, and we're estimating we're going to spend about $18 million on the projects. And again, just to mention that the proceeds for these projects was received in the fiscal year we're in right now and last fiscal year. And now to look at our fund balance percentage, as you can see in 2014, we were at 29.74% and increasing steadily to 52.18 last year. If we use our budget figures, we'll end this year at 48.10, but as I mentioned, I'm hoping it's going to be a little bit higher than that. And then we'll end up next year at the end of 21, again, using budget figures at 45% roughly. But if this estimate for the 4810 increases, that's also going to increase the estimate for 2021. Then looking at that fund balance again, but just looking at it in dollars, how it has increased steadily, which is a really, really good thing for the district right now, because that is going to help us weather the next couple of years with this, the decline in the economy. So we're expecting to end this fiscal year we're in right now with about $29.4 million. And if, again, using budget figures, we'll drop down to about 28.2 million next year. Assessed valuation history, I wanted to take a look at this and then I thought I would share it with you. So in 2008 to 2009, our assessed valuation had went up a little bit, but as you know, we had a recession then and it went down in 10, 11, 12, 13, it went up slightly, back a little bit down, and 14 and 15 look like they're pretty relatively the same and slowly going back up. So obviously we're hoping, most people are thinking we're going to have more of a V-shaped return to normal this time. So hopefully it's not going to be this widespread U and we get back to normal a little bit quickly, but just something I think we need to think about as we get through the next couple of years. And we had that huge increase from 19 to 20, and then I'm just estimating a very small increase for next year. Now, if we look at revenue by source for all funds, so as you can see, 84% of our revenue is coming from local sources. That's our tax revenue and sales tax mainly. County makes up the next section, just 1%. Those are fines and state assessed railroad and utilities. The state revenue is about 13% and federal is about 2%. Then expenditures by object, looking at all funds, once again, you can see salaries are 46% of the budget, benefits 13%, purchase services 7%, supply 6%, capital is 22%, and that's such a big amount because we have those bond expenditures in there for the Prop E projects, and our bond payments are 6%. So now if we take a look at that again, but just looking at our operating funds, you can see 80% of the operating budget is salary and benefits, 9% is purchase services, supplies make up 8%, and then capital's 2%, with the lease payments just being 1% of that operating budget. Some upcoming revisions. We'll have updated numbers once we receive our assessed valuation numbers from the county. So once we plug those numbers in, the tax rate amounts will probably change a little bit. And of course, we'll bring that to the board to approve the actual tax rate in September. Then we'll have more updates if funding levels change or if more withholdings are announced. We'll have our normal budget adjustments through the course of the fiscal year. And then, as I mentioned earlier, we'll have that CARES Act funding that we'll add to the budget. The preliminary allocation right now from DESE is $264,317, but we do have to work with our non-public schools, and they are allocated $68,553 of that. And here just kind of wanted to look at projections. So this is this year with that deficit that I mentioned earlier of almost $800,000. But once we put some of the CARES revenue in there, that will decrease that. And we said we're going to work on looking at our capital projects expenditures so we don't have to transfer as much to the capital projects fund. And we have those couple of positions that we're not filling right now too that could save us some money. So, but then if you look at this, and if we keep spending roughly the same amount we've been spending, but our revenue doesn't return to the normal trend that we had before this year, our deficit is just going to keep growing. As you can see up here in my assumptions, like on the state revenue, I show it increasing 1% over this year, but that doesn't even get us to where we were in this year, fiscal year we're ending right now. So we will need to make some adjustments in the future if we don't think we're going to have a quick turnaround to this recession. So definitely something we will keep an eye on. Any questions?
So Pam, you talked about interest and sort of, variations in interest earnings. Where are these proceeds currently held?
A lot of our proceeds are in the Missouri School Investment Pool. Previously we were earning over 1%, which I think is years ago that was a poor interest rate, but that's been about cut in half right now. So most of our money is there because we found out that we can actually earn our interest rate leaving it than a lot of other entities. Earlier this year, Mr. Elliman actually called around for us to get price quotes, interest rate quotes from various banks for different funding to say maybe we should do CDs or something like that at some of those banks. And it was determined that actually MOSIP was giving us the best return on our money.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Yeah, it's anything you can get, I'm afraid, at the moment is good. And so that then brings to mind the other question, which is, do the historically low interest rates give us any opportunity to refinance anything?
Possibly. We'll need to look at our bond call dates and look at that. So that's a very good point. Yes.
Thank you.
Other questions for Pam? All right, I guess you were very thorough. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next up, I will entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Do we first have to approve the adoption of the
I'm so sorry. Yes, thank you, Christine.
I can go ahead and make a motion to approve the adoption of the 2020-21 fiscal year budget with a total revenue of $69,286,723 and expenditures of $87,290,318.
Second.
Is that Keita?
Yes.
Okay. Moved and seconded. All those in favor, aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you. Now I will entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I make a motion to approve consent agenda items 6.02, 6.03, 6.04, 6.05, 6.06, 6.07, 6.08, 6.09, 6.10, 6.11, 6.12, 6.13, 6.14, 6.15, and 6.16.
Second.
Thank you both. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, at this time, we will officially conclude the current board. Welcome our newest board member, Alan Todd. So I will entertain a motion to adjourn sine die.
So moved.
Thank you.
Second.
All those in favor, aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Typically, our board secretary, Sherry, would provide over this portion of the meeting, but she's unable to be here tonight for family reasons. So we have Kathy Vesperini acting in her place. Kathy, you want to take over?
Yes. Tonight, the board reorganizes with the installation of new director, Alan Todd. Welcome, Alan. And returning directors, Amy Clendenin, David Addison, and Joe Dahl. Congratulations to you all. At this time, board members will be sworn in individually for 2020, 2021. Sherry said to start with Mr. Todd. This is the oath of office for you to say and sign for the board record. Please repeat after me. I do solemnly swear.
I do solemnly swear
That I will support the Constitution of the United States.
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
And the Constitution of the State of Missouri.
and the Constitution of the State of Missouri,
And that I will faithfully and impartially discharge the duties of school director
and that I will faithfully and impartially discharge the duties of school director
in and for the school district of Webster Groves,
in and for the school district of Webster Groves,
County of St. Louis, State of Missouri,
County of St. Louis, State of Missouri,
to the best of my ability according to law.
to the best of my ability according to law.
Okay, thank you. Next, Ms. Clendenin. I do solemnly swear
I do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Missouri,
and the Constitution of the State of Missouri,
and that I will faithfully and impartially discharge the duties of school director
and that I will faithfully and impartially discharge the duties of school director
in and for the school district of Webster Groves,
in and for the school district of Webster Groves,
County of St. Louis, State of Missouri,
County of St. Louis, State of Missouri,
to the best of my ability according to law.
to the best of my ability according to law.
Thank you. Mr. Addison, I do solemnly swear
I do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Missouri,
and the Constitution of the State of Missouri,
and that I will faithfully and impartially discharge the duties of school director
and that I will faithfully and impartially discharge the duties of school director
in and for the school district of Webster Groves,
in and for the school district of Webster Groves,
County of St. Louis, State of Missouri,
County of St. Louis, State of Missouri,
to the best of my ability according to law.
to the best of my ability according to law.
Thank you. Ms. Dahl.
Yep.
I do solemnly swear
I do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Missouri,
and the Constitution of the State of Missouri,
and that I will faithfully and impartially discharge the duties of school director
that I will faithfully and impartially discharge the duties of school director
in and for the school district of Webster Groves,
in and for the school district of Webster Groves,
County of St. Louis, State of Missouri,
County of St. Louis, State of Missouri,
to the best of my ability according to law.
to the best of my ability according to law.
Okay, congratulations to everybody. After the oath and signing, we will complete the board's reorganization with the board nominating and electing officers. Is there a nomination for board president?
I'll nominate David Addison for board president.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor, vote aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Mr. Addison is elected president, and I will hand it over to him.
Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate the faith and trust you put in me taking over this role. And just before I do anything else, I would like to thank Amy for her service as board president over the last few years. She's done an outstanding job. I've had the chance to sort of sit and watch everything she's done, and it's, you know, I hope I can do half as well as she has. And Amy, just because you're no longer board president doesn't mean that all of us aren't going to still be leaning on you for help. So thank you. So at this point, I'd like to, I guess, the election of vice president. So do we have any nominations?
I'd like to nominate Joe Dahl for vice president.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Second.
Are there any other nominations for vice president? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor of Joe Dahl for vice president?
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Joe, congratulations. You are vice president.
Thank you.
Next, I'd like to the election of board secretary. I know that Sherry isn't here tonight, but is she able and willing and interested in retaining her position? John?
Yes, she is.
Okay. In which case, I'll entertain a motion to appoint her as board secretary.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. All in favor? Aye.
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 Anybody opposed? Okay. And Sherry is duly re-elected as secretary. And finally, the election of treasurer. Is our treasurer available to tell us that she's still willing to carry on and do this?
I'd be happy to serve.
Joanne, thank you very much. We really appreciate everything that that you have you've done for us. I will.
Joanne Kite for treasurer.
Second.
Aye.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody
Aye.
opposed? Good stuff. Okay.
Thanks, Joanne.
Thank you very much.
Before we move, can we just give Alan an opportunity and any of the incumbents just to say a few words and introduce some of the little people in the background, and maybe there's somebody a little bit taller there too. Something we normally are able to do in the boardroom, but
Welcome, Alan. I promise we will
Welcome,
do a better job of welcoming you at some future date.
Thank you.
Yeah.
You may have heard that was my little one there that popped in and said hi and ran away. I apologize. He was stomping around as I was trying to read the oath. So hopefully you guys could hear me, but thank you guys for welcoming me. I am excited to join you guys, excited to join the board. You've got my daughter Avery behind me, as you can see. My wife Heather was in and out, so she's out at the moment, but you know, thank all of them for their support in this endeavor. So it's a family affair.
Awesome.
Welcome.
Welcome.
Any of the re-elected board members care to say anything? I don't have anything to say, but Joe?
Excited to be back, and welcome to Alan.
Amy?
Ditto. Hi, Avery.
Okay, and then the last item we have is board meetings for going forward.
what we just kind of wanted to bring to the group is just the idea surfaced at one point about shifting our board meetings to Thursday from Monday. The purpose being that it would give, right now we try to get board materials to the board on Thursday. Sometimes it's Friday. And then with Mondays, you know, there's often sometimes that you'll have questions, you'll want to read the materials, and finding that, especially on my team, I'll say, I know that it can be challenging because it's the weekend to do that. And also the thought of sometimes these meetings will go longer than others, and it's easier to recover on a Friday than it is on a Tuesday. So I know that for some people, it may not be the best. Anyway, we just kind of wanted to throw it out to you. It seemed like some people might be interested to see if you'd entertain it.
That better not be a prediction of how future meetings are going to occur under David's leadership.
That is so funny.
I'm willing to try it. You said we'd get the packets when for Thursday meetings?
We would get you the packets by the Monday at the latest.
You know, it just, with working during the week, it makes it a little bit hard, but I'm willing to give it a try. And I think that, you know, just in case there are people who can't make a Monday meeting who would want to visit a meeting and who could make a Thursday, you know, I think that could be something worth trying.
Yeah. And we could shoot for the Friday too before, for at least most items, or do something to try and support you guys, knowing that the weekend is a little bit of space for you to engage in. I mean, you still have family and still have work in a lot of instances, but we could shoot for that if it was something to try.
Personally, I like the idea. I think Thursdays would be a good move for me.
I'm okay with it. It's my schedule is way different, but I'm good. I'm good with whatever you guys are good with as well.
I'm fine either way. It's all new to me.
Keto, when you say your schedule is very different, sorry, Alex, when you say your schedule is very different, what do you mean? Does that make it harder?
Well, for instance, Mondays are my Friday. So I actually do have more time to recover if we have a later meeting. Whereas Thursdays are my Monday. I have to be at work at 4 in the morning on Friday.
So it's a little payback.
But as long as they need to breathe.
Exactly.
And I'm noticing a theme.
then I'm good with that.
So I will say with my travel schedule, I'm more, well, if we ever get back to traveling again, I'm more likely to be traveling on a Thursday than on a Monday, but I'm happy to give it a try. But what I'd like us to do, perhaps, what we can do is sort of halfway through, we can, or perhaps we give it a try for the whole year, but let's sort of be open to going back and revisiting again if this isn't working out. And I'd encourage people to holler if it isn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would. It really doesn't make a difference, but I'm definitely open to trying Thursdays.
Sounds good. That's what we'll do. We'll get a calendar out to you all. We have a TBD in July, but we will have to have a meeting at some point, you know, or maybe two related to what it's going to look like in 2021. So we'll kind of be in touch as we move through and start really firming up plans for the school year. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. That's it for that.
Okay. In which case, seeing nothing before the adjournment, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I would like to, first of all, congratulate David and Joe and welcome Alan. And I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Second, I mean, sorry.
Was there a
Third
consent
for
agenda?
Keita. All in favor?
Wait, before we vote, can we also give some major props to Dr. Kristen Dembo, who this will be her last board meeting. She served the district quite well over a number of years, and I will miss her personally and professionally. And I'm excited about the possibility to maybe do some work together in the near future. But Chris, thanks a ton for everything.
Yes, and like I said to Alan, we will find a better way to celebrate you appropriately in the future. But thank you so much, Chris.
Thank you. I so appreciate all of you. I am so grateful for the opportunity. I've loved working. If circumstances were different, I'd probably be continuing to work, but I'm just so thankful for your support and everything. So thank you.
We're excited to hear the tales of your travels.
Hopefully.
Yeah, get to that point soon. We have to.
Anybody else got any comments they would like to make before we entertain a motion to adjourn?
It's moved and seconded.
That's true. All right. So anybody got any comments before I call the vote? Okay. All those in favor of an adjournment?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you very much. Appreciate it, and we'll see you all soon.